All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at the Antipodes Oladra,
The Oladra.
a music server and streamer.
Let's get into it.
We'll be looking at some fascinating features, like its dual computer architecture,
Dual computer, wow.
its unique power supply technology, and the almost obsessive focus on noise reduction and signal timing.
All very important factors.
And of course, we'll be breaking down those 4 key processing stages that the signal goes through.
Definitely looking forward to that.
But before we get too deep into the nuts and bolts, I think it's important to understand the philosophy behind Antipodes. The founder, Mark Jenkins, he sees scientific theories as more like starting points, rather than absolute truths, which allows them to explore beyond, the conventional wisdom in audio design.
Interesting approach.
And this is important for you, the listener, because it suggests this deep dive isn't going to be about dry specs.
No?
Now, one of the things that really sets the Oladra apart is its dual computer approach.
2 computers, huh?
2 computers in one device.
That's unusual.
It's not something you see every day, right?
Right.
So they have one computer dedicated to the server stage
Okay.
and another for the player stage.
So each with its own specific task.
Exactly. And the idea is that each computer can be tailored to its specific task, avoiding the trade-offs that you would normally have in a single computer system.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's like Jenkins uses this car analogy. You wouldn't expect a Formula One race car
To be good for...
to also be your daily commuter, right?
Right.
Each vehicle is designed for a specific purpose.
Purpose built.
And that's how they approach the Oladra. The server is all about power and efficiency.
Okay.
Managing your music library, streaming data, all the heavy lifting.
Our course.
And then you have the player, which is like the conductor,
Okay.
taking that prepared data and focusing solely on processing and delivering the signal to your dado with the utmost precision.
So 2 specialized components working together?
In harmony.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. The reviewer actually found that this dual computer approach really did make a difference.
Oh, how so?
They said the music sounded more mechanical and rigid when they switched back to a system without the Oladra.
Without the Oladra.
Yeah, they felt like it lacked that natural flow that they experienced with the 2 computers.
Interesting.
Now let's talk about the power supply, because this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
When you think high-end audio, you think big, beefy, linear power supplies. Right.
Right. Traditionally.
But Antipodes decided to go with a triple cascade switch mode power supply.
That's a bit different.
Yeah, so why go against the grain like that?
I'm curious as well.
Well, Antipodes believes that switch mode supplies, when they're carefully designed,
Carefully designed.
can actually deliver cleaner and faster power.
Okay, so it's about the implementation.
Exactly.
Because switch mode power supplies are also known to be a bit noisy.
Right. That's the big concern, isn't it?
Yes. How did they address that?
Wouldn't that be detrimental to sound quality?
Yeah.
Well, they've gone through great lengths to mitigate that noise.
Okay.
They use a triple cascade design, which basically filters the power multiple times
Triple filtering.
to ensure it's as pure as possible.
Interesting.
So it's like giving the power a spa treatment, right? Complete with the noise-canceling cleanse.
I like that analogy.
But why should the listener care about the nitty-gritty of power supplies?
Yeah. What's the real-world impact?
It all boils down to achieving that perfect square wave in the digital audio signal.
The perfect square wave.
Think of it as a series of on-off pulses represented by ones and zeros.
Okay.
A perfect square wave means those pulses transition between states instantly, with no delays or distortions.
So a clean, crisp signal.
Exactly.
But how does the power supply affect that?
Well, even a tiny hiccup in the power can mess up the timing of those pulses.
I see.
And we're talking nanosecond level errors here,
Wow.
which can impact the sound, making it less precise and less emotionally engaging.
So it's all interconnected.
The Oladra's power supply ensures that the electronics have this clean, consistent energy source
Okay.
to keep those square waves sharp and accurate.
Makes sense.
So clean power equals a clean signal.
Leading to a more accurate and emotionally impactful listening experience.
It's all about preserving the integrity of the musical message.
Absolutely.
But it's not just about the power, right? There's a whole world of processing that happens to that signal before it even reaches your speakers.
Right, the journey of the signal.
And that's where the 4 stages of signal processing come in.
The 4 stages.
Antipodes has meticulously designed these 4 stages into the Oladra.
Okay, I'm ready to hear about these stages.
It's like a relay race, with each stage ensuring that the music signal is passed along in pristine condition.
Interesting analogy.
So we've already talked about the first 2 stages, right?
Right.
The server, which is like the starting point of the race, and the player, which receives the baton and starts to shape it for optimal performance.
Okay.
But stage 3, signal regeneration, that's where things get really interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
Antipodes uses ultra-stable clocks and these meticulously crafted circuits to isolate the signal
Okay.
and eliminate any unwanted noise that might have crept in along the way.
So it's like a cleaning process.
It's like they're giving the signal a chance to, catch its breath and refocus before that final sprint, you know?
Right, makes sense.
And finally, we arrive at stage 4, signal reclocking.
Signal reclocking.
This is the anchor leg of the relay.
The final stage.
Antipodes uses femtosecond clocks.
Femtosecond clocks.
Yeah, that's 1/4,000,000th of a second.
Wow, that's incredibly precise.
To precisely time the signal before it hits your DXC.
So no room for error.
They are not messing around.
I can tell.
But why go to such extremes?
Yeah, why is that level of precision so important?
It's all about those square waves again.
Okay.
This reclocking stage ensures that they are as clean, sharp, and free of jitter as humanly possible.
So it's about maintaining the integrity of the original signal.
Precisely. Antipodes believes that even tiny timing errors, those tiny errors can blur the signal
Right.
and make the music sound less defined and less emotionally impactful.
So it's all about preserving the emotional core of the music.
Absolutely. The cleaner the signal is in those earlier stages, the more effective this final reclocking stage becomes.
It's like a chain reaction of precision.
Exactly. All in service of delivering the most pristine signal possible.
Fascinating.
Now, once the signal has gone through these 4 stages,
Yeah.
it's ready to be sent to your DA.
To the D.
And that's where the choice of data transfer interface comes in.
Okay, the interface.
The Oladra gives you a few options: USB, I2S, eCBU, and SPDIF.
So different ways to connect to the DI.
Right, but is there a best choice? Does it even matter which one you use?
That's a good question. Is there a clear winner?
Well, Antipodes actually sees these outputs as more than just connections.
More than just connection.
They view them as a way to shift processing tasks between the server and the D-Day.
Interesting. So the output choice affects the processing.
Yeah, depending on which output you use, certain processing steps might happen in the Oladra,
Okay.
while others might be handled by the DA.
So it's about distributing the workload.
Exactly. Like with USB, the signal conversion might happen in the Oladra.
Okay.
But with something like ACB, that conversion might take place in the DIA.
Interesting. So it's like fine-tuning the division of labor.
Precisely.
Did the reviewer have any preferences?
They actually compared the ACBU and USB outputs
Yeah.
and noticed some subtle differences.
What kind of differences?
They said with USB, the sound was a bit tighter, a bit leaner,
Okay.
while ACBU had a more relaxed and spacious presentation.
Interesting. So it really depends on the desired sound signature.
Yeah, experimenting with the different outputs is key to finding the sound that best suits your ears in your system.
It's about personalization.
It's amazing how much thought and attention to detail has gone into every aspect of this Oladra.
It really is a meticulously designed piece of equipment.
But before we jump into the listening experience and those claims about its analog sound quality, we're going to take a quick break.
Oh, okay.
We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the Antipodes Oladra.
Looking forward to it. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into the Antipodes Oladra.
We've been talking a lot about the technology behind it.
All those fascinating features.
But at the end of the day, what really matters is how it sounds, right?
Exactly, the listening experience.
And the reviewer made some pretty bold claims about the Oladra's sound.
Yeah, they did.
They even went as far as to call it the best analog source they'd ever heard.
That's a strong statement.
And I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptical.
I understand. Can digital really capture that analog warmth?
That's the question. Can digital audio really capture that warm, natural feel that people love about vinyl?
It's a debate that's been going on for ages.
So what did the reviewer have to say about the Oladra's sound?
Well, interestingly enough, their initial reaction wasn't one of being blown away by some kind of wow factor.
Okay.
They described the sound as effortless and fluid.
Effortless and fluid.
Yeah, lacking any harshness or artificial enhancements.
So it's not about trying to force detail that isn't there.
Right.
It's more about letting the music breathe and unfold naturally.
Exactly. They even compared it to listening to a top-notch vinyl setup,
Interesting.
where the music flows so effortlessly that it simply becomes the new normal.
Cool.
There's no sense of strain or digital artifacts getting in the way.
I'm starting to get intrigued.
Yeah.
But what specific music did the reviewer use to illustrate this analog sound? Did they mention any specific tracks?
They did. One track that really stood out was Sonny Rollins' saxophone on Way Out West.
Oh, Sonny Rollins, classic.
The reviewer described the reproduction as utterly natural,
Utterly natural.
with a tangible sense of space around the instrument.
Like you're right there in the room with them.
That's the idea. Like you could hear the subtle vibrations of the saxophone,
Right.
giving it a realistic presence.
It's that sense of energy and nuance that you get from a live performance.
Right.
And it sounds like the Oladra is capturing that in a way that most digital systems don't.
That's what the reviewer highlighted. They were also impressed by how the Oladra handled the dynamics of the recording,
The dynamic.
with each instrument occupying its own space without getting lost in the mix.
That's so important, especially with complex musical arrangements.
Absolutely. It's easy for things to get muddled.
But it sounds like the Oladra maintains that separation and definition.
It does, and it's not just about instrumental music.
Okay.
The reviewer was also deeply moved by Etta Cameron's vocals on her album Etta.
Ed Cameron. Okay.
They praised how the Oladra conveyed the raw emotion and nuance of her voice,
Wow.
even admitting they were brought to tears by the performance.
That's powerful. It really speaks to the Oladra's ability to connect the listener with the heart of the music.
It's about conveying that emotional depth.
I'm guessing the real test came when the reviewers switched back to their previous setup.
Yeah, that's where the contrast became really apparent.
What did they say?
They described their old system as sounding mechanical and rigid in comparison,
Mechanical and rigid.
lacking that organic feel they had become accustomed to with the Oladra.
It's like going from a high-definition TV back to an old standard definition set.
Exactly. You don't realize what you're missing until you experience something better.
So they realized that the analog quality of the Oladra wasn't just about a lack of harshness.
Right.
It was about a fundamental naturalness and musicality that just permeated the whole listening experience.
It's a holistic quality.
Okay, I'm convinced the Oladra is doing something special.
Good.
But we've talked a lot about the hardware.
The nuts and bolts.
What about the software side of things? What options are available?
The Oladra is very versatile. It supports a wide range of software options,
Okay.
including popular choices like Roon, Squeeze, HQ Player, and even Sonos.
So you've got plenty of choices.
You do, but here's a fascinating tidbit.
Right.
The reviewer, who's a big fan of Roon, actually found that Squeeze had a slight edge in terms of sound quality.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising. Roon is known for its user-friendly interface and all those features.
I know, it's a bit unexpected.
So simpler can sometimes be better.
It seems that way. It's possible that Roon's complexity, while great for user experience, might introduce some subtle processing that affects the purity of the signal.
So it's like having a direct line to the music.
That's the idea. No unnecessary processing getting in the way.
And the beauty of the Oladra is that its dashboard makes it easy to switch between different player-server combinations.
Yeah, you can experiment and find what sounds best to you.
So it's all about personalization.
Exactly. Antipodes gives you the tools, but ultimately it's up to you to discover what resonates with you musically.
So let's revisit that big question.
The big question.
Is the Antipodes Oladra really the best analog source, as the reviewer claims?
That is the million-dollar question.
And what does that even mean in a world where digital audio is constantly evolving?
It's a question that keeps audiophiles up at night.
For sure.
I don't think the answer lies in specs or measurements.
No.
It's about how the technology makes you feel. How does it connect you with the emotion and artistry of the music?
Right, the emotional connection.
It's definitely a unique piece of kit.
So Antipodes has clearly gone all out
They have.
in their quest for, sonic perfection.
No stone unturned.
But what does this mean for, the average music lover out there?
Right.
Is the Oladra just for audiophiles with deep pockets?
Good question.
Or are there broader takeaways here that, anyone can appreciate?
I think that's the most important thing to consider.
Okay. So what do you think?
Well, while the Oladra is a high-end product, no doubt about that,
Yeah.
I think its real value lies in the principles it embodies.
Okay, so more than just the tech itself.
It's about the philosophy.
So what principles are we talking about?
It challenges us to rethink our assumptions about digital audio,
Okay.
to prioritize the emotional impact of music above all else.
The emotional impact.
That's the key.
So how does the Oladra embody these principles?
Well, they've shown that digital audio, when done right, with the same level of care as, the finest analog gear,
Okay.
can be just as captivating, just as moving as those revered vinyl setups.
So it's not about digital versus analog anymore.
It's about the execution, the attention to detail.
So they've kind of transcended those limitations, the limitations we typically associate with
I
digital.
push the boundaries.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It-
It gives me hope for the future of music listening.
Yeah.
Because as more and more people embrace, streaming and digital libraries,
Right.
it's reassuring to know that we don't have to sacrifice sonic excellence.
We can have both convenience and musicality.
And the Oladra is a glimpse into that future.
A future where those two things coexist harmoniously.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what are your final thoughts on the Oladra and its place in the audio world?
I think the Oladra is more than just a product.
More than just a product.
It's a statement, a declaration.
A declaration.
Digital audio can be just as engaging, just as moving, as analog as those top-tier vinyl setups.
And it's a challenge to the industry, right?
It is.
To keep pushing, to keep striving for excellence.
You never settle.
Never settle for good enough when it
Yeah.
comes to delivering that emotional power of music.
Because that's what truly matters.
Powerful words to end on.
It's about the journey.
It's a reminder that the pursuit of sonic perfection is an ongoing thing.
It's a process.
It requires constant innovation, experimentation.
And a deep understanding of what moves us as listeners.
Absolutely. So, dear listener,
Yes, dear listener.
as you go on your own audio adventures,
Explore, experiment,
remember to keep an open mind, trust your ears,
and most importantly,
never lose sight of that emotional connection
that emotional connection.
that lies at the heart of music.
That's what it's all about.
And if you ever find yourself wondering if digital can truly capture the soul of music,
Yeah.
remember the Antipodes Oladra.
The Oladra.
It's proof that it can be done
When we push the boundaries.
when we refuse to compromise on what truly matters.
Absolutely.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time,
Keep exploring.
keep diving deep.